Guys, welcome back to another video. Here we're going to be installing the HP70, and then we're going to be going over a few different things that are required for it, like getting this PCS controller hooked up. I'll go through the wiring. It can be different for my Jeep based on other Jeeps. The colors might be a little different. I'm just going off guides that I've seen online. And then we'll be doing, like, you know, the torque converter bolts, the structural cover. There's a very specific torquing order for that. Yeah, just kind of getting things a little bit more buttoned up. I was really hoping to have the oil cooler lines in for this video, but it seems like I will be waiting for those to be shipped in. So that will be in the next video, and hopefully a startup and driving experience will be in the next video. I'll also be showing you what preparation is needed for the HP70 to make sure it's ready to rock and roll. Just remember, if you're liking anything you're finding in this video, or if you're finding this video useful, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. So I mentioned that I wasn't able to use this intermediate plate and this structural dust cover. So the thing about hemi engines, or let's say the hemi transmissions, is when they're in a car, the bottom of the transmissions, the bolt pattern is different than it is compared to the truck. The whole top sides, both cars and trucks that actually connect to the top of the motor, are all the same. But the bottom of the motor, or the bottom of the transmission for cars, is going to be different than trucks. That's why I had to get a new intermediate plate and a new dust cover. The only thing that sucked for me was this plate was on back order, so it would have taken maybe weeks to get from Mopar. I went to a junkyard, and this actual structure or this intermediate plate is in a lot of different motors. I'll list the part number for it, but it's in like Jeep Grand Cherokees, it's in the Jeep Liberties, the 3.7 Liberty, a lot of different vehicles from like 2002 to like 2022. So yep, junkyard was my option, is where I got it from. Alright, so now it's time to prep the actual transmission. Right here I've got a 3/4 16 tap. So we're going to tap both of these holes. That way we can actually insert fittings to do the cooler lines. You want to make sure you plug off these holes. So here I have these little plastic, these are the plastic clips that you have to take out. I've got these and they fit right in there perfectly. That way you don't get any metal shavings inside there. When you're doing your tap, make sure you also have lube for your actual tap. So I'm just using some good old-fashioned gear oil. Alright, after doing the vacuum, just in case there's any other extra little pieces left, I'll just take some new clean oil, dip my finger in it, and make sure my finger is clean when it comes out. The vacuum should have gotten most of anything. Prepare for your shifter cable bracket. So in order to do this, you need to grind out just a little slot in there. That way this fits right in there. So I'm getting ready to throw this transmission in here. A couple things you really got to look out for are, you got to make sure you've got all the wires up and out of the way. You definitely don't want to pinch anything when you're, connecting your bell housing to the top of the block. So just make sure everything is pushed up, and if you have to, zip tie the crap out of it. Also, we don't need this nag 1 plug anymore, so we can just zip tie this away. The way that I use to hold the wires up is actually take just a ratchet strap, tie it around, and then pull it up out the engine bay, just to really tuck things out of the way. So I don't know if you've ever had a wire pinch in here when you go to tighten all the bell housing bolts and then you realize you got to unloosen them all. Not fun. Strapping this down will make this a little bit safer. Alright, and after a little bit of struggling, finally got it in there, and I got 2 bolts in it. A couple things you want to take note of and make sure is that your torque converter is all the way seated into the bell housing onto the main shaft. A lot of times you have to spin it several times back and forth while pushing, towards the rear of the vehicle to make sure it's all the way seated. What you don't want to happen is you go to pull this transmission towards the bell or towards the actual motor, and you realize the torque converter is pushed too far. It's not all the way seated. You want it to be back a little bit. So once you get this all the way up here, a good thing to check for is that you can actually still spin the torque converter. I don't know if you can see in there, but where the actual torque converter bolts go, you can actually spin that. And the other thing you want to check for is that there's actual gap between there. So right now, if I were to grab the torque converter and bring it forward, it clicks and comes forward. It's very important. You want to just make sure your torque converter has that gap and then actually pulls forward towards the motor. The other struggle that I was having is lifting this transmission up with the transfer case attached. I don't regret it, but doing this alone, it wanted the transmission to lean this way. You'll be able to see that in the video. But that made it pretty hard to align this guy up. Other than that, it went in very smoothly. So I will just keep putting things together and then go from there. Remember, like and subscribe if you are enjoying these videos or if you find them useful. Alright, so one of the biggest questions I was having is, am I going to need new drive shafts or to get them adjusted? Looks like that answer is no. It's the same exact length. parts back in from Speed Shop. My flash TCM, so we'll get this guy put on here. We'll just slip right in. And we just gotta flip it over to get the bolts in. Remember, it's 5 T27 Torx bolts. And they get tightened down to 88 inch-pounds. I will also post a picture up top, that way you can see exactly which bolt needs to be tightened down. Make sure when you're putting this TCM on, the back solenoids are clamped down all the way. Alright, now we're going to be removing the oil pan to get our valve body in. These are the same T40 Torx as we're going to use for the valve body bolts. Alright, before we can lift the valve body up, we got to push down right here, and it releases that lever so we can flip this lever forward. Before you lift the valve body up, you need to pry that lever like I was saying. And I just used a wrench, adjustable wrench on the side, and it locks up against there. Just so it holds this piece forward, or else it tries to spring back. And then that little arm just goes inside there. Don't forget to insert your actual plug from the outside with this little lever moved down. And then push this lever up to lock the plug, and then you can put the bolts in there and torque it down. For the plastic oil pan, it gets torqued down to 88 inch-pounds. Alright, so I was going to use my factory shift bracket that came in my 2013 Rubicon, but that actually wasn't the right one. So I grabbed the one that's off of the Build of Materials list, off of Jeep Speed Shop's Facebook page. I believe that if you have a manual Jeep, then it should come with the correct brackets. But the automatic, even if it's Rubicon or whatever, it's not the actual correct bracket. So now I got the new bracket already ordered and in and hooked up. We will connect it. Very simple. Just snap it in just like so. We're going to clip this in. Just like that. Alright, so now it's time to get the flywheel and torque converter bolts lined up. So you can reach inside the starter hole and spin the actual torque converter. Then make sure you pull it forward towards the front of the vehicle. That way the bolts and the torque converter and the flywheel are touching each other. Then you can go ahead and get your red Loctite. We're torquing these down to 31 foot-pounds. So you'll want to put 2 of them on, spin it all the way around, kind of tighten up a little bit, spin it all the way around. You don't torque it down until you have all of them in, and tighten down a little bit. So all the bolts, there's 6 of them. 14 millimeter, but the size of the wrench or socket can change based on what bolts you have. Don't actually tighten them down, just finger tight until you get all of them in. Alright, so this is the new piece I had to get. It's actually used, but this is the structural brace. There's a very specific torque down order that you have to do, so I will link it in, or I'll show a picture right now, and then you can kind of follow along. Let's get started. So here I got the structural dust cover on, already torqued down. I already got the bell housing or the torque converter bolts torqued down. The TCM and valve body are already on and torqued down. I got my new shifter linkage bracket that's all in and bolted up. My previous setup from the charger had the starter on the other side. So I need to just mount, I had to get a new starter, and then I need to just reroute my power lines for the starter over to the driver's side. Still waiting on the adapter for the transmission mount. And once I get that, I will be able to actually mount the transmission to the cross member. And then I'm waiting for oil cooler lines. I went with the 392 from the JL, so that'll be nice once I get those in. Then I'll get my drive shafts mounted. It'll be one step closer. So for now, next step is the wiring, so we will move to the inside of the Jeep. Here we're going to start prepping the Jeep for the wiring for the PCS module for the HP70. Got to take out the NAG1 computer. Alright, there are 2 bolts that hold in the NAG1 computer, which the NAG1 computer is this little black box under the dash. So right in there we have our brake light switch. Please at least watch this video so you can learn the simple things like not wasting time like I just did. To remove this, twist it and pull it out. It is very simple. Twist and remove. Here's the orientation of this bracket. This little notch goes to the bottom, and then you can see where the bolts kind of line up here. These little bushings go on here first. This is where the shifter goes. The next step is going to be running this wiring in the appropriate places. This one will go down. In order to get the wire through, I had to pry up on the bottom of the center console a little bit, or the dash, just to squeeze that fitting through. I also had to take off the end of the fitting. This is the twist part that goes onto the transmission, onto the under here. It looks like right here is where the wiring came out of. You can just pull this out, whatever length you end up needing. And we gotta put the end cap or the little piece, the plastic piece back on here. This will all be lined up. These little tiny notches on the inside will line up before you clip it on. Here, here, and here. Like that. It's on. Alright, next we're gonna figure out the routing of the wires. This is our ground, our battery, our key. Those are all gonna get ran under the steering wheel. So we're not using this purple wire. Out of the big wire group, the only ones we're using is the reverse lamp and the brake lamp input. And then we're going to be using this Canbus connector. It's not the one that's with the big group, it's the one that's separate. So we're going to cut off this little gray plug. It's got the white and red tracer, and then the white with black tracer wire. So that'll go under the dash. The circle plug we're not using. I'll still leave it under the dash because there's more room under there. This plug here, this is our laptop calibration connector. That one, I think that'll go under the seat. This plug will stay here. This is for the SFT, that's the shifter. This big one is for the Pcs module. And the last one is the OBD. I'm going to put it right next to the other OBD connector. So essentially, all these wires are going to end up going through the dash and kind of hanging out under the steering wheel area, right above my feet. Alright, now that we got most of the wiring set up, we can mount this guy. There's supposed to be a stud here that's long enough, but this one is just not long enough to hold on to it. So we will use two self-tappers right here and right here to get this held in place. plug in. You push it in, it doesn't go all the way, and then you pull this back while pushing down. Then it'll snap into place. The best part about pushing all the wires forward is you're not stuck with a whole lot of wires back under the center console. So let's move under the dash and get all of our wiring done. Alright, so here we have the stock Jeep wiring. This is one of the plugs that went to the nag one, and this was the second plug. On this plug with the two wires, we're going to use this yellow wire, and this is going to be the keyed power, meaning when we turn the key and turn the ignition, it's going to be turning on. That's going to go over here to the yellow wire, and that's going to be switch 12 volts. So this will go to this yellow wire. On this other plug, there was this connection in there, secondary, two wires separate. I disconnected it. You've got looks like a yellow with a black tracer and yellow with a blue tracer. These are the Canbus wires. So we've got the yellow with the black. From what I've seen online, that will be your high Canbus. So that'll go to the white with red on the PCS wire. We'll cut this tip off. It says here, Canbus connector. We will cut this white with the red tracer, cut that, and that will go to the yellow with the black tracer. So black with the red. Over here we have the yellow with the blue, and that one will be your low Canbus, and that will go with the white with the black tracer. And that's for this Jeep. I don't know if it'll be the same for yours depending on what year or whatnot, but I'll put the actual colors in the description, that way you can just see it. We have this brake switch right here, green with a red tracer. That's power all the time, 12 volt battery. So green with the red tracer, power all the time. There is a white with a tan tracer. That one is your brake switch. We have the brake lamp input. Alright, so here I've got the PCS module installed. I've got the wiring already brought through the hole down there where the original shift cables went through, all the way connected to the transmission already. Got the shifter plugged in, got it bolted in. I've got the USB connection ran so it goes under the driver's seat. And if you notice, I did most of the wiring, I actually put it up under the dash. So I don't have that much extra wiring that's actually going to be under the center console. And I really wanted to avoid that. It just becomes a mess trying to put everything back, and it just makes it not clean. But I have these fuses here. I never took them out, but it'll be easy enough if I have to remove the first portion of the center console if those fuses by chance ever do anything bad. So also, with talking with Jeep Speed Shop, if you get your PCS controller from them, you actually don't need to tap into the brake lights or the reverse lights. All you need to do is tap into the power, the keyed switch, the ground, and then the Canbus. So everything I showed you except for the brake light. Over here on the driver side is where I put my ground. Next step will just be installing the center console. On my video 1, I showed pretty thoroughly how to remove it, so just do the reverse of that. Alright, for the interior, one of the last steps is this last trim piece. That snaps in there. And then what I made for the actual shifter is this shifter boot. So essentially you're gonna have to, or I will have to super glue or hot glue this boot to the actual trim piece. It'll go on the inside here. But overall I think this will be a very clean install. So it looks like next video we will be installing the oil cooler lines for the transmission mount, and then hopefully getting this thing started up. Maybe go for a test drive. Alright, thanks for watching.